Learn how to knit in the round with the moss stitch. Today we're working with circular needles, learning how to cast on in the round, work a cowl pattern, and bind off and pattern in the round, and some tips and tricks to go along with that. This is lesson 8 in our How to Knit for Complete Beginner series. This is knitting in the round with the moss stitch today on Good Knit Kisses. Welcome to Good Knit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. We are excited to present to you learning how to knit in the round with circular needles. If you've wondered how to work in the round, you can do it with circular needles, or you can do them with double pointed needles. But for a large project like this one, circulars are the go-to, at least for me. I'm working with some fixed circulars. These are ones that have a fixed cord that's attached to them. If it has a much longer cord than you need for the circumference, don't worry, because we have something called a magic loop technique. It's pretty simple. I'll show you how to do it. It really affects you mostly when you're starting the first several rounds, and once you get going, it's really well established and it's easy to continue on with. So let's go over the supplies that you're going to need today. I'm working with Addi Turbo needles, and this is a US 11 or 8 millimeter needle, and the brand doesn't really matter, but the cord I'm working with is a 40-inch cord. You do not need a cord that is this long. In fact, it could be 24 or 32 inches. There's different sizes. This manufacturer makes 24 and 32-inch cords, and I'm working with a longer one to show you how to do the magic loop technique. So if yours is just enormously long, that's okay. If it's too short though, you're gonna have a hard time working the needles around, and say if you have a 16-inch cord, it's really gonna be too short, and you might not want a 20-inch as well. You can probably crowd more stitches around it, but I would recommend something bigger, especially when you're a beginner. Okay, so you're going to need your needles, you're going to need your ball of yarn, and I have gotten this entire cowl out of one entire ball of Bernat Softy Chunky. This is color Limelight, and we're working with a super bulky 6-weight yarn. It gets 11 stitches to 4 inches in their gauge, and I got about 10. So it's relatively what's on the ball band. I also recommend getting a couple of stitch markers, one that you can slide over your needles well, and then maybe an extra one that you can pin on there for the beginning, and you'll see why. It just helps you to eyeball some stuff. I want to show you an alternate yarn. If you happen to grab a super bulky 6-weight yarn and you feel like it's a little bit bigger than the one I show you, that can happen, and this is something that happens as you go along. This is a bonus little lesson in yarn here, but you see how these two 6-weight yarns, one is heavier than the other. That's okay. There's a certain range of sizes that's okay in the labels. I'd say this one on the left is more almost like a thin 6. It's almost a 5-weight yarn. So you can still get the same thing out of it in the same finished size. It's just that you'll cast on less stitches. So if your stitches are going to work up a little bit bulkier like this one is, I can show you how to cast on to where you get the same size of finished project, just like this one is, except it's less stitches. So just so you know, I actually have this one on the right where I cast it on 62 stitches, and the one on the left is 72. Just as long as you have an even number of stitches, you can work this cowl. For the alternate yarn, this one is Yarn Bee. It's called Effortless, and the color is Crab Apple. So it's actually Yarn Bee is the manufacturer. I bought it at Hobby Lobby several years ago. It's called Effortless Super Bulky, and again, the color is Crab Apple, and then of course this is Bernat Softy Chunky, and the color is Limelight. Okay, let's dig into the pattern now. Be sure and download your pattern from Ravelry or Etsy ad-free, or you can get it for free on our blog. Click down in the links below and go over to our blog to see that. Now, we've already gone over all of the essentials that you need for this, so let's just jump on over to the next page and go right into our notes. Our note says the moss stitch uses a multiple of 2 stitches, so you can just cast on a multiple of 2, make sure it's divisible by 2, and you can change the circumference of the cowl. In fact, you can make it really big and make it an infinity scarf and just knit it all in one piece. So that's a way you can do that as well. So just an even number cast on, and of course we'll have the tutorial links in there as well. We're going to cast on 72 stitches. So we're going to join in the round, and we're going to switch the first and the last stitch. We're going to place a marker which is that PM note that we had last time in our video series, between the first and the last stitches to mark the beginning of the round. And all rounds are right side. That means you're always looking at the right side of your work. You're never flipping it and turning it. So it's just going to continue working round and round and round. So the abbreviation for round instead of row is just RND. And round 1 is going to be knit 1, purl 1, and repeating across to the end of that round. And then you just slide your marker at the end of that round. So that's the same as when you're working this moss stitch in the flat panel. The difference is when you work in the round 2 is going to be knit exactly the same as round 1. That's pretty simple. Let me zoom in here if you can see that. So round 1 and 2 are the same. And then you switch it. On round 3, you're going to purl 1, knit 1, and repeat that all the way across to the end of the round. Slip your marker and repeat that again. So rounds 3 and 4 are exactly the same. So you're just going to repeat those 4 rounds until you get to your measured length. I'm measuring it at about 8 inches. If you want to make it a little bit longer than that or shorter than that, that's up to you. If you want to do something that I love to do, if you want to make this the one ball, you can use the trick I'm going to show you here in a moment, to where you can just figure out how much tail you need for the bind off, and then you always know you have enough yarn at the end. So the way to end it, if you remember working back and forth for the moss stitch before, you want to have, you know how our rows are all doubled up, our rounds are all doubled up, we have 2 knits on top of each other and 2 purls. Well, you want to finish off where you only have 1 round like that. You don't have them doubled up. So you want to finish it off after you've completed a round 1 or round 3. So this just measures, repeat rounds 1 through 4 until cowl measures approximately 8 inches or until desired length, ending after a round 1 or 3, and that will get you to that point. And then you're going to bind off and pattern and weave in the tails. Now we've done that in several different videos, and of course I'm going to show you on this one today, but it's going to finish out just like that, and it will finish out that pattern. So even though you stop short, when you bind off and pattern, it's going to look like this. So it looks really pretty, and I've got a great trick for you connecting in the round on this today. I'm going to show you how to cast on and also get enough yarn to have a cast on, but also enough yarn to have enough for the bind off later on if you only want to use 1 ball. All right, so we have our ball of yarn here, and generally I'm pulling from the inside, and I pull out this extra little part and I find the beginning strand on the inside, and I pull from the inside, and that's where I knit from. But there's also the outside of it, and I don't like to pull the outside because I don't want to take this little wrapper off, but this is what I do. I can pull off this last loose strand. You just find whatever one is loose. Generally it's tucked in here, or it might be tucked into the back here, or tucked in somewhere, but you can find the loosest strand on the outside, just pull it over, and you can see how it's just kind of like woven around here. I just kind of pull it around. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out as much as I need for a bind off or a cast on, which is 3 to 4 times the circumference or the width of your project. Now you know that because we talked about that on cast on. It's the same thing for the binding off or the casting off, depending upon where you are, you call it either one. So we pull that out, and once we get to that point, what I do is I can use my tape measure to measure. We're going to go to 29 inches, 28, 29 inches, and I'm going to have a tail, and that's the beginning of it. I'm going to go around, because I already got this one measured, but you can use a tape measure to do this. I'm going to go around like this and find where it finishes it out. So see, here's my loop, and that's what I need. So you can mark your little tail here with a slip knot. Okay, that's my little tail. And then this is the part right here where I've got 1 circumference. So now what you can do is take your yarn. I'm going to put a little slip knot on here. This is my quickie way of marking things. Go ahead and grab more yarn. Okay, I'm trying not to pull it out of this ball band very much, but I can just find where I have my slip knot and pull my next strand, so I have my second amount that I need, and go all the way till I hit that where that tail area is, mark it, hold it, and then pull it back. So now I've got 3 times the amount. Go all the way to here. Look at that. All right, so here it is. That's the end. And I've got now 3 times the amount that I need for binding off later on. So I can just mark it with a slip knot. Okay, and you can make it like a really long slip knot and tighten it in pretty good. And then I'm just going to take this and wind it around my hand. Okay, I know there's a lot of information here, but just bear with me. Take it and stuff it inside your ball band. Okay, so now all the yarn at the back there is ready for when I'm finished and I'm at the end, so I know I have enough. So now when I want to begin my project, I can just pull from the middle here. This is called yarn barf. This is the middle. Sometimes you find the tail really fast and sometimes it's a lot like this. So I just kind of quickly pull through and find the tail. So here's my tail. That's a lot. Okay, now let's do that again. I've got my tail here and I'm going to pull out my circumference. This is my quick way to do it. Okay, so there's that. There's that end. Okay, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now I have 3 times my length. So this is my long tail. I know I did that really fast, but I did it slower right before. So if you want to rewind, that's fine. So now I can go ahead and put my slip knot on for my very beginning when I cast on. Okay, so now this is ready. So now you have a ball that has the tail ready to go for when you're gonna bind off, and you have some yarn pulled out that's nice and loose, and you have your tail for casting on. So let's go ahead and cast on all of our stitches. I'm going to put the tail part toward me and the ball part to the back and tighten that up. All right, so let's grab our yarn, split it with our fingers, and to get gauge, go ahead and put your finger here, and you're going to put your new yarn on to where it goes right up to your finger. Okay, so go up at the thumb, down at the finger, down at the thumb, and let go. And you see how my yarn is just going right up to my finger, and I have a nice little spacing. This spacing is about the width of my yarn that looks like on this needle. So it's about that size. Really at the base is where it is. Okay, it's pushed out at the top here, but really at the base it's nice and spaced. Base is spaced. So grab our yarn, and we're going to go up at the thumb, down at the finger, down at the thumb, let it go. I've got my finger moved appropriately, and we're going to keep going. Now, I'm doing a cast on of 72 stitches. I suggest, even if you think your yarn is a little bit bigger than mine, go ahead and do 72. You can always do too many stitches, count them when you're done, and you can always take them off after I show you this trick. Do you see how when I pull my yarn, how it's nice and stretchy, just like this? If you pull it and it pulls out like this, it is not stretchy enough. So you want to pull it out like this, because once you start knitting your stitches, those are going to spread out more. It's going to get gauge. It's going to look like this. You know, your yarn it looks all nice and cool when it's pushed up on the needles like this, but it's going to be way too tight of a cast on. And so if we have it stretchy like this, you can actually get the right measured length. And we talked about this in our last video a little bit, but I can actually know that if I pull this out all the way and I want to make something that is 3 inches, I could just cast on, like this says 3 inches here. I can actually just cast on another couple, and I'll know that I could get a 3-inch wide item just because I have kind of met my gauge here. Okay, so go ahead and cast on all of your stitches, and I'll spread them out and show you what I'm talking about on size here in a moment. We'll see you soon. All right, so I have cast it on. I'm going to use my tape measure to show you that I have the right amount to work in the round, whether you're working with either yarn, or any yarn. So go ahead and grab your tape measure, and actually before you grab the tape measure, go ahead and pull your stitches out. And I'm not overstretching them. I just kind of pull them out to where they're all sort of evenly spaced. Just make sure that they're you know, they're not like squished together. I'm not overstretching them either. Okay, so I've got them all out. They're staying put, so I know that I haven't overstretched them. And I'm going to get to my Pardon my tape measure. I had to staple this in place. I know, I'm so bad. Okay, so I'm going to put my 0 at the end here, and I'm just going to lay it over my stitches and kind of hold it in place as I move my cord along and my tape measure along. And we're just double checking the size. Just kind of nicely going over it, not stretching, trying not to stretch the stitches, and come out to the end. And I am right at about 28.5, almost 29, and these could probably go out a little bit. So I am really near spot on for the size that I want. And you can see that if I connected this in the round, it's very much like this one here. Okay, so I know that I have the size I need. Just double check that you've got an even number of stitches, and then let's connect in the round. All right, I've removed everything from my background so you can really see it. Okay, so we have what we would normally do, our first stitch here. I've got it moved over to my hand, and I went ahead and got my tail trimmed to a regular length so I don't get it confused with my ball, okay, the ball yarn. So the working yarn is back here, and go ahead and take your stitches and make sure this is not twisted on here, but see how my stitches are all nice and running on the same direction here. You've got, you're going to have this connect in a circle, okay? So go ahead and lay this down like this, where you can see the first stitch, and you can see that the cast on is lining up nicely. Kind of go around all the ways where this is not twisted. And I'm going to feed my last stitch to the end of this needle here. Now, if your cord is misbehaving, see how it's kind of moving when I push it in? That means that my cord is a little bit long, and so we're going to do something called the magic loop technique. I'm just going to go, just give a good amount of stitches towards the end, but I'm going to put it on this side of it and go bend my cord and go pull the cord between a couple of stitches. Just going to pull it like this. All right, this is a magic thing. Making sure all my stitches are still facing the right way, so make sure they're not twisting. Make sure this is not twisted. We don't want to twist our stitches. This is the most important part, okay? This video is all about connecting in the round, and that's exactly what we want to do. So make sure this is all the right way. It might take you a minute. It's a little fiddly when you first learn how to do this. Okay, so these are all facing the correct way. And now I'm going to push the stitches to the end. Okay, and then we're going to push the stitches to the end of these needles here too. Okay, now I'm going to switch my first stitch and my last stitch. Okay, so I'm going to take this first stitch off and hold it at the back. It's nice and loose. It's not really going to fall anywhere. I've got the working strand kind of back here. Okay, then I'm going to pick up my last stitch and put it onto that needle that I'm going to work with all those stitches first. Okay, and now before we do anything else, let's go ahead and grab our stitch marker, close it up if it's locking, and you're going to slide it onto that stitch, okay, or slide onto that needle. Then you're going to take the stitch that you're holding in the back and pick it up with the other needle, okay? And now you have connected in the round. You're not going to have anything loose and disconnected. It's going to be a nice, secure connection. If you want to further mark where the beginning is, you can take another little locking stitch marker and just place it right there. And you can see where the beginning of that round is visually with this stitch marker. It's not necessary, but if you like to see it, then there you go. And if you ever work with double pointed needles, you would need to do that kind of thing because they'll fall off at the end of your needles later on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move my stitch marker over right after that last stitch, and we're going to work the first row of our pattern. So row 1 or round 1, we're going to go into that first stitch. It's going to be tight because we just switched those first and last stitches, and you're going to knit that stitch. So this is the moss stitch. Okay, then we yarn forward and we're going to purl, and you should notice that the next stitches will be nice and normal. They're not going to be so overly tight. So go ahead and put the yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. You're just going to repeat knitting and purling all the way around And of course you can do this pattern with another stitch pattern. You could make a garter stitch, seed stitch, whatever you like. All right, so just continue working that, and pause your video. I'll meet you back up when you get to the end of this round. See you soon. So if you've been knitting along, you realize, oh wow, I've now got a big cable here and only a few stitches left. What do I do? Okay, so you can go ahead at this point, if you've waited this long, go ahead and finish out working that stitch pattern and empty out that needle. So I'm going to finish mine on this pearl needle. Okay. And you just lay it down and make sure you're not going to be twisting up anything. Okay, you don't always have to do it this way, but I think it's easier when you're beginning to understand. So make sure that you've got it all with your right side facing you, and you can see this stitch is like this. Kind of examine your cast on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is feed this yarn back through here, put my needle in there, and we want to make sure and pull some more cable out. So I can just split some stitches here and just start pulling on the cable to get that extra in there. Okay, so I'm just trying to lay it flat so you can see, but I'm just pulling on it, and see how it's trying to twist this needle here. So make sure that it's all staying facing the right side. Okay, so nothing's really twisted, and then I can just push that needle back into those stitches, or push those stitches onto that needle. Okay, and then it's set up to go again. As you're knitting, when you start noticing this extra piece here moving closer to this side, all you have to do is kind of pinch between the stitches close to this side and just pull more out. So you can just keep going around and around like that. If your cable is closer to the circumference of your actual project, then after you get a few rounds established, and you may not be so squished in, you may not have to use this magic loop technique at all, but I wanted you to be aware of it in case you have the wrong cable size like I do for this project. So continue working it. I'll meet you back for the beginning of round 2. See you soon. All right, we're on our last stitch, round 1. Work that. Got a purl there, yarn to the back. Go ahead and slip your stitch marker and repeat round 1 for our stitch pattern. So just a knit 1 and a purl 1. So you're doubling it up, and it looks like you're almost starting a rib stitch, but of course we're not. We're going to be working on this moss stitch. So continue along, pause your video. I'll meet you back for round 2. See you soon. I'm interrupting your knitting to show you, let's move the cable along for the magic loop. So I am not finished with my round, but as I see it kind of creeping along, I can go ahead and pinch and move and grab that cable and just move it along and give myself some more slack so I can just keep going. And what's really great is when you can get it past where your stitch marker is, so that when you move to the next round, you're not worrying about that part yet. So go ahead and pause your video, and I will see you for round 3. See you in a moment. All right, I just ended my round 2, and you may notice that your knitting looks a little bit softer. It feels softer. It feels more stretchy, and it's not so tight around it because you've got a little bit more room around here. You may notice that you need less cable to be pulling through as severely as before. You can kind of pull this out. I just recommend not pulling it out too much until you have several rows in. That way you don't accidentally twist these around. It's really easy to get this part twisted around, and then you end up twisting your knitting, and that's a whole different thing. So let's I'm gonna go ahead and slip over our marker and begin round 3 here. So round 3 actually begins how round 2 ended. So round 2, you finished with a purl stitch, and you're going to begin with a purl stitch for round 3. So did I say that right? So round 2 ended with a purl. We're going to begin round 3 with a purl, and it's okay that they're next to each other. So just go ahead and purl the first stitch and yarn to the back, and we're going to knit the next stitch. So we're going to be still alternating knits and purls, just reversed Okay, so just continue working that around, and you'll see where you begin to have a double up of the stitches. So we have, for the pattern below, we've got 2 knits above each other, and then we have 2 purls, and then we're going to alternate. So finish up round 3, and then go ahead and we'll meet back up for round 4 to finish this out with more instructions. All right, we'll see you soon. All right, go ahead and slip over your stitch marker to begin round 4, and it begins how you began round 3. So just yarn forward, and we're going to purl, knit, and alternating purls and knits for that round. Okay, so now that you know the established pattern, you're going to be repeating those 4 rounds until you get your desired length. We're going until we get to about 8 inches, which is 20 centimeters. You can go to whatever length you like. If you want a 7 or an 8, 8.5, 9, whatever you want, just go until you finish out, after you finish a round 1 or round 4. Basically, you want it to look like, you're not going to want it to look like this, where we have 2 purls on top of each other. Those are the really identifiable when you see 2 purls together. Be sure and look at those, not the knits, because sometimes you might think, oh, I've got 3, and or you only have 1 established, you might have 2, but look at the purls. So if you see a bump here and a bump here, you know you're good. So if it looks like this, with a single purl and a single purl, it almost looks like seed stitch, you're at the right point for being ready for bind off if you get to that right length. So if it looks like this, you've ended at the after a round 4 or after round 2. But if it looks like this one here, you're at the right point for binding off. So just continue repeating, and you'll be able to tell if you're what row you're on. You won't have to follow it after a while. It's pretty brainless. You just make 2 rounds look the same with knits and purls on top of each other, and then shift them over with 2 knits and 2 purls on top of each other to make the moss stitch. And then measure when you get to the right length. Now, if you did the little trick where I have the extra yarn tucked in here, and you know that you have enough for the bind off, you can kind of pay attention to when that starts coming along, when this ball starts getting really down there, and know, hey, maybe I should just work this one, or maybe I need to back up around and be finished with it. So, all right, those are my tips. Go ahead, and the next part of this video, we will be ready to bind off. We'll see you soon. All right, so we're going to bind off in the round. We are at our desired length here. I've got 8 inches in my moss stitch, and want to make sure that you are ending after you complete a round 1 or round 3, so that it's set up so you can bind off in pattern. So we only have 1 round where you can see knits and purls on there, not the 2 doubled up rounds. So just a little bit of a trick here. I'm going to finish knitting this last stitch, and we'll be ready to begin this binding off in the round. So you can go ahead and slip this stitch marker over and then start working your bind off, but I suggest taking the stitch marker off, and if you have a locking one, go ahead and just place it on this very last stitch and lock it in that way. That way, if you set your work down, this is not going to fly off, and you know to leave this last stitch until the very end. Okay, that way we continue this working in pattern. Now, if this is just a stocking net where it's all knit stitches and everything, it probably isn't going to matter, but when you're working in a pattern binding off, it's better to go ahead and keep that pattern going correctly. So this first stitch is a purl, so we're going to purl the purls and knit the knits. So we start by purling the first stitch, then we knit the second stitch, and then just as we normally bind off, take the second stitch in on this this needle here and pull it up and over the top, pass it over that stitch there on the end. So now we keep going. The next one is going to be a purl stitch. Go ahead and purl that, and then we're going to lift those stitches up and over, pass it over to bind off, and keep going. So that one's a knit, pass that stitch over, and keep going. Now you're going to notice that there's a gap here, and this is going to continue to get further and further along. So obviously you can tell that this is the last stitch, so you can go ahead and take this off at any time. But the first few stitches, it's easier to tell where you should be. Okay, so just keep on going, purling the purls, knitting the knits, binding off as you go. And pause your video. I will meet you back up to finish off the last few stitches, and we'll do the tails together as well. We'll see you soon. We are down to the last 2 stitches working in the round. This is a knit stitch here for me. I'm going to knit that and knit over to bind off, and we have 1 more left. And let's go ahead and pull it on through. We're actually going to be putting these stitches together to close this gap. So we're just going to pull out a nice long strand here. You don't need terribly long, but I like to have a plenty in there to mess with. So I'm going to go ahead and take my needles, put them aside, and go ahead and get out your tapestry needle. You don't really need this one in here anymore, but it is nice because you can see where these stitches connect. So you have 2 purl bumps right here, this one and this one. Those are your purl bumps at the top. And then you have your knit column right here. So these actually match up next to each other. And then this stitch here needs to have another little stitch leading from here to connect. So that's what we're doing now. So we're just going to thread this end. Okay. And we're going to go find the chain. So you can see like a chain across here. Here's a little V stitch of a chain here, and you can follow it back until you find the last one. To me, that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, there's 1 and then 2. So that's the very last one. So we can go into that, okay, pull through, and then come to the other side over here and go into this one, the top of this last chain here, from here to here, kind of like a figure 8, and then go to the back. And when we pull through like that, it crisscrosses our stitches, and then we can go through again here to fill in that next one. And then you have your stitches making the V shapes together, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and just for good measure go pull to the back through this one again, okay, and then go on the inside and just go up through one of these purl bumps so I can start weaving in my tail. You can go ahead and take your little stitch marker off if you need, and you can see how that is closed up nice. And now I'm going to just start weaving my tail into the back of these stitches here. I'm going to find my way up. And let's see, I'm going to go through this little purl bump here and up through this purl bump. Okay, now I'm going to start kind of following them through. Okay, so I'm kind of backwards, so let me turn around, get a better look at this. Okay. So this one has a nice purl bump that goes around this way. So I'm going to go around and come up through here and then follow my stitches. I can just find the next stitch that kind of goes around. So I'm just following the yarn as it goes through stitches. So I'm going to go around and underneath this one and then come up through this bump. And I'm just following the stitches that are there previous. And that's really what I do is it's called a duplicate stitch. I'm just following whatever the stitches we're doing before. So I'm going to go around this one into the back. And you can see it go around here. And you can see it go around here. And you can even come up. And so until I've gone through several, I'll just continue. And then when I'm ready to fasten off, I'll go back through a few of these and come up and split through the yarn of one. And then we're just going to trim it off. And that end is done. And then now we want to go through the other side. And this was our cast on edge. Okay. And this one, for the most part, is already connected because we had already twisted it together, so it's really nice. We can go ahead and take this one off if you still got it on there. And thread this through. And it looks just like what we did on the bind off side. You can just Go around another stitch. Make sure this is nice and closed off. Go around and through to the back. Pull that in snugly. And then go to the inside and start finding the stitches that you want to go around. And get that in there nice and secure. And continue on until it's finished. I hope you enjoyed making your moss cowl today and knitting in the round, learning all those things. What was your favorite thing to learn today? Was it the knitting in the round? Was it learning how to get gauge and knit a different number of stitches and still get it to the right final measurements? Was it the bind off? Was it the weaving in the tails? I would love to hear back from you. I'd love to see what you make. So if you want to tag me on Instagram at GoodKnitKisses and show me your cowls and show me your projects for this series, I would absolutely love it. Be sure and click down in the comments below and tell me what your handle is on Instagram. I'd love to have you follow me over there and we'll connect. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon on our next lesson for our How to Knit for Beginners series. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.